What is the biggest issue then that's kind of like this season that you think that's holding you back? Like maybe have other teams sort of, I don't know, not that there was many teams to go past you, but have teams sort of gone past you tactically and you're sort of struggling with a new coach, those sorts of things? Or is it more, is it older players?
I actually think tactically McQualter's doing a great job of finding a game style that sort of brings teams down to our level to a little bit, and hopefully we can develop that as we have better players. You know, I think West Coast, for a start, are much younger than they were last year. If I was watching each week on the Truth Eagle Instagram, I've started making highlights clips of the last time we beat someone. And then I made one for Fremantle for next week today, and I did Richmond last night. And you just see in the highlights clips, you see Jake Waterman, Elliot Yeo, Harvey Reid, you know, probably a little bit fitter than he is now. I mean, maybe not Jack Darling, but he's just another senior player that we had last year. I think we don't have the experience and the maturity and the fitness probably as a young group. We're also, if you want to point at any particular part of the ground, you'd have to decide between a few. Stoppage and clearance, we were terrible against Port Adelaide, worst team in the comp for that. And the scores we're kicking as well. I think whether we play well or badly, West Coast is scoring between 50 and 65 like most of the last 6 weeks. So, a few things to work on, but the effort throughout 4 quarters and the game style is evident, I think.
For me, like obviously the clearance part, you go and have a look at your numbers and it looks pretty bad on paper. It's sort of strange a little bit that when you go through the players that are actually in there, definitely they are young, which is a part of why they can't stay in the games consistently. But the actual mids in there to me look reasonably high quality. And are players that can actually win a stoppage in there. Is it coming from? Do you think it's coming from the mids and the lack of quality in the mids, or do you think it's coming more from the ruck position that you just can't sort of put your stamp on it from that source, and then you sort of got to shark taps and go off the opposition's ruck a lot?
Yeah, it's a great question, because the ruck situation for West Coast has been poor. I mean, it's probably better than it has been over the last couple right now, and it's still terrible. I think that it's hard to say because we've seen premiership teams with a great midfield do just fine without all-star ruckman. I think of our last premiership team, Nick Nat did his ACL when we won a premiership with Lysett and Vardy.
Right. I actually forgot about that. He missed that grand final. Yeah,
exactly. So the mid stepped up in that case. So for me, the priority is fixing the midfield. That's where we should allocate our resources. But, certainly...
Including the ruck position?
I was mostly focusing on midfielders. So, like, if you tied it into a draft conversation, my desire is to go midfield over ruck. If at the pointy end, which we can talk about now or later. But there's a top ruckman in this year's draft pool, and it will be an interesting decision for West Coast.
100%. Do you think though? This is one that's been going back and forwards in my head with West Coast, like whether they go for the draft with a ruck or whether they try to look to free agency. Do you sort of see anyone like? I'll throw a couple of names that I wrote down earlier here just for players in free agency. Where is it on my list here? Okay, so potential players that you could go after in the ruck line: Jordan Sweet, Ivan Soldo. They sort of haven't been able to nail their place down. Jordan Sweet's in the Port team at the moment, but he's far from sort of consolidated that. Ned Reeves, Nick Madden at the Giants, who's sitting behind Briggs but looks like a pretty talented player. Ned Moyle, Taylor Goad, and even Riley O'Brien. Darcy Cameron sort of could be up on the market. You wouldn't have thought Cameron would want to come to a club like West Coast at this point, just given where they're at. But would you see any of those as an upgrade on what you've got?
Yes. I must admit I don't know too much about someone like a Nick Madden. But a Ned Moyle, for instance, is I think probably one of the better he's not state league, but he's playing VFL a lot.
He dominates at that level.
Exactly. One of the best of his type in the league. So yes, absolutely I would jump at that opportunity. On Cameron, there's been so much mixed reports around what he wants to do. There has been reports that he is dead keen to get back to Perth, and in which case he wouldn't be at Fremantle, it would be at West Coast. And then a week later you see an article saying Darcy Cameron would never leave Collingwood. I just don't know what to make of it. But, that one and say like a Riley O'Brien absolutely walk into the team, obviously. But then you just consider Darcy Cameron would probably cost a decent pick for where we're at. Don't know if that makes sense. And Riley O'Brien as a free agent would be great, but then it would dilute Oscar Allen compensation hypothetically. So,
yeah.
Look, another ruck, say like a Ned Moyle, I mean, that would be a dream come true.
I feel like he would be the pick.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
And you and I were talking about it the other week. I did a video on it this week even around the potential that you could like do a bit of a trade with Gold Coast. They could sort of get ahead of that pick, throw a few picks back at you the other way. Maybe Ned Moyle could even be like wound up into that trade, which would sort of, I feel like if you could do something like that and it would put you a little bit ahead, because obviously if you draft a ruckman, they're just so far away from actually being ready. If you take like a Cooper Duff-Tytler in the draft, it's not like he's going to walk into that team and just be a dominant ruckman, right? Like he's going to need a little bit of time. So
absolutely. If we get Ned Moyle wrapped up in that deal, I would be very happy.
That'd be crazy if it didn't cost you too much of a high draft pick as well, and then you could sort of bring in those mids as well. It's going to be a big year though for you guys. A massive year coming into, like the trade period's going to be massive. The draft's going to be big as well.
Yeah. I liked your video. If anyone hasn't seen it, on the Dylan Alexander YouTube channel, it's called The Trade That Could Blow Up the AFL Draft or something like that. Something to that effect.
Sounds about right. Yeah. Something like that. It's a little bit dramatic.
Yeah, no, it's great. That's titles. That's show business, baby. Great video. And, hypothetically, if West Coast can manufacture a draft hand like Richmond's last year, I understand that it's not as strong a draft, but obviously I think that's what West Coast is crying out for. Maybe, sling a pick to Melbourne for Judd McVee would also round out a trade period very nicely, hypothetically. But it's going to be a big off season.
I absolutely love Judd McVee. I feel like if you want a ruckman, you can poach half decent one that can be solid, and that's what starting teams in finals have. So that's from Chris.
Yeah, agreed.
Which is, it's true. It's absolutely true, but it doesn't necessarily mean in a draft that you can't, like doesn't mean you can't take a ruckman with a top pick at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look at Luke Jackson. I think pick 3, no one's except for the team that lost him. But I mean, on talent, pick 3 for Luke Jackson, it makes sense. I think someone like a Cooper Duff-Tytler, that comes down to which team's picking.
Exactly.
And I think the risk is smaller if you're Essendon or even Richmond, to be honest. I think there's a little bit
because
more
of the
risk.
Melbourne factor.
Yeah, and it's not because he necessarily is a flight risk, but the development arc for rucks is a bit longer. So keeping him happy, and if he's getting interest from interstate clubs, it's just another Harley Reid potentially without the star.
I agree with you, but it's like there's already risk, and then you add in more risk with the fact that it's an interstate player as well.
Sam Cumming seems to be, what's happening is Brockman's lining up for gold. Fantastic.
Don't know what that was for.
Yeah, I won't question it. Sam Cumming seems to be a player that's bolting up the rankings right now. Do you think it's foreseeable that he bolts into the top 5?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'd almost say he's there.
Okay.
Already.
Let's
Obviously,
keep it quiet though, because I kind of want him
yes,
later.
He's very good. I feel he's been one of the, just a pure midfielder, he's been one of the more consistent players. He's got versatility as well. Like he's very athletic, takes a mark when he goes forward. And just, he's one of those guys that brings his opponent, brings him inside forward 50 and just creates headaches and can run all day, has speed, has power. He's not like, I wouldn't call him like a really, really high end kick that would make him kind of put him into that maybe like an Isaac Heaney sort of bracket of a player. But if that's something he can work on a little bit, he's not a terrible kick. And he kicks off both sides. He probably just at this point looks like one of the more, as a mid and a taller, bigger bodied mid that's got pace, he probably looks like one of the more well-rounded prospects in the entire draft for me. And he's performing as well. So it's not as if he's just, a project.
Yeah.
He's someone that's actually putting it down now.
He's kind of emerged as almost like my priority for West Coast very quickly. I think he had a breakout performance in the Sandful, was it? Was that the most recent weekend?
Yeah. So he just played and kicked, I think he had 15 touches, kicked 3 goals.
Yeah, that's right.
In the seniors.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's what he can do really. Like he's a headache of an opponent. So it runs through the midfield, can win a clearance, drops in forward, just a versatile modern midfielder. And he's got that running ability. And at the moment he's like 186. So he probably he could grow a couple more centimeters, be that sort of,
couldn't we all?
Yeah. Be that sort of like big bodied type midfielder. He's quite physical as well. So
yes. Yeah, I think him and someone like a Javan Philippou, who we were discussing the other day over a morning coffee, a couple of players that this draft kind of needed, I reckon, just to really add some.
Jevan's so fun.
Yeah.
He is so fun. I'm really intrigued with what happens with him. Like whether I feel, I said to you as well, like I feel there's an element where clubs will look at him and go like, is he a bit too flamboyant with the way that he plays? Just he likes to, show opponents the ball and stuff like that, step around people. And like sometimes, I feel like sometimes clubs prefer that sort of mentality of like meat and potatoes.
Absolutely.
And don't do that. They don't want too much personality. And I feel like he is a big personality. I think that was a thing that was spoken about too with his brother.
Yes.
In his draft year. So I don't know if that's going to hold him back. I don't really hold that against him. I think he's good to watch. So there's somebody in the chat really keen for you to draft Sam Cumming.
I think he's a bit of the buzz name in West Coast circles at the moment.
Really?
Yeah, I think the West Coast have just been crying out for a genuine midfielder to arrive as a top-end prospect that we can choose.
Yep.
With some reservations about Dyson Sharp. Seems like one of the more divisive players in terms of where he's rated.
Crazily.
And it's kind of a case of, well, if you want the best midfielder, it's Dyson Sharp. But now to have a few other options like Sam Cumming throw their names into the mix, I think that's why people are interested.
My big thing there with Cumming versus Sharp or versus whoever really, and looking at West Coast's list, your midfielders that you currently have, and I actually wrote a few of these down going into this just to have a bit of a look at it. So who is in your team? I'm looking at your mid. So for the future, and I've just not included any of those players that are senior type players like Kelly or Yo or any of those guys because they're not really going to be around, right, for the next push. Elijah Hewitt, Bo Allen, Jack Hutchinson, Jack Graham, Harley Reid, Brady Hoff, Clay Hall, Tom Gross, Tyrell Dewar. So that's sort of the list of next-gen Eagles midfielders, I would say. I feel like you've got potentially in Brady Hoff, potentially in Clay Hall, potentially in Tom Gross, you've sort of got in and under players there that can win stoppage, win clearance.
Agreed, but I kind of also like the idea of having a genuine stoppage player there to take that responsibility away from Harley and Elijah. I'd love Harley being the second receive midfielder rather than the bloke getting it from the bottom of the pack out and then, handballing it to himself. I mean, he's had to do that at times.
Do you think, though, that could be any of those players that are currently on your list, be it Hoff, probably more of that like defensive / stoppage player?
Yes, yeah.
Tom Gross, though. Tom Gross is a pretty hard-nosed, or would you prefer someone there that's like a bigger body, a little bit more physical?
I mean, if he can become a Lockie Neal, I reckon that goes a long way. But obviously that's a huge if. But I just meant in terms of that like style of stoppage player, like small body doesn't faze me as much.
There's probably no one on West Coast's younger brigade list, though, that's like a known quantity yet.
Of course.
So you kind of can't. I mean, Richmond would be the same. North would be the same. It's like none of them are truly bankable.
Yeah.
Harley Reid
Harley Reid's bankable, but will he be there is another question.
Yeah. I mean, Elijah Hewitt feels like he's becoming a bit more of a sure thing. Yeah, but I just look at the breakdown. I mean, I see Hewitt as more of that transitional mid. That can kind of get from contest to contest, has speed.
But he doesn't have the endurance, though. I think he's a bit more power, explosive, impact.
He is. I think he is a pretty good runner, though, Hewitt. As an endurance, I don't have times or anything like that to kind of put up against him. Yeah. I get what you mean. He's definitely more of a speed and power guy, but I feel like he still can be that, I don't know, something similar to like a Holmes.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know if he has that running capacity, to be honest.
Yeah, okay.
But perhaps it's something he can develop.
Sure.
These things do tend to be natural, but players become better in that.
You see him sort of drifting out, not able to sort of keep that going.
I think in the full evolution of the West Coast midfield, let's say we get all the pieces right, I think Hewitt will spend time forward and rotate through the midfield. Primarily midfield, not like a impact midfielder. But
so would you see more of that sort of dusty?
Yeah.
50% forward, 50% mid.
Yeah, maybe even more midfield than forward, but I just don't think he'll be that run all day kind of contest to contest guy.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I sort of thought that he potentially could be. I know he's an explosive type. I thought he could be Chad Warner, who has definitely been that sort of 80% midfield guy. And then probably Heaney's been... They mix and match a little bit, Sydney, but like Heaney has been that sort of forward... strike sort of guy, if you want to call it that.
50-metre penalty will give Richmond a shot on goal. Maybe in time. He's a fantastic trainer, Elijah Hewitt. So potentially.
A lot of injuries too, right?
Yeah. He's had a good run this year, touch wood. He's been managed for this week. He has been fading a little bit. So it's good that we are able to give him that break.
Sure.
and not be forced to play him every week like we did a couple of years ago.
What about someone like a Bo Allen? Would you see them as like could potentially being that transitional midfielder, or do you see more of that medium defender?
I hope so. That's a really good question. I think the one thing that Bo probably needs to prove is genuine stoppage craft.
Yeah.
He's got the athleticism. He's a big body, as Maurice Rioli lets us off with a behind. 11 points the margin. He's got the athleticism. He's got the strength. And definitely some versatility. But I would love to see him prove himself as a ball-winning midfielder. Could he be a Jordan Dawson that can't kick? Like, that's still a pretty good player, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, look, that's a big question mark. I think if he's not a midfielder, he'll be a halfback and a wing. But he needs to prove that stoppage craft. So a big question mark, but definitely some potential there.
For sure. I see him as having the fundamental athleticism to play the modern game, but I think you're right. It's more his technical ability at the moment's not there. Mm-hmm. But I'd rather coach that than have the technical ability and he doesn't have the athleticism and he's not, truly good enough.
Yeah.
In some ways, although it's all pretty important at the end of the day. But I don't know. I see this kind of comes back to that Sam Cumming conversation that I feel like he's the sort of player. He is that contest to contest mid that you actually need.
Yes,
more so than the Dyson Sharp stoppage player.
You've sold me. But yeah, look, the endurance and the running power that Cumming seems to have, as well as some degree of stoppage ability, versatility. Yeah, I mean, I suppose the only difference is he's not quite as well performed as someone like a Dyson, but I think he's currently I say priority. Would we pick him at pick 1? There's a lot of water to go under the bridge first, but I really want him on the list.
I think, though, when you talk about well performed, I think he's got the way that he plays and the way that he hits the scoreboard and gets the ball more conducive to doing it at the top level than Dyson Sharp.
Okay. Yes.
That's sort of my read.
Yeah.
Albeit,
athleticism being a big factor in that.
Big factor.
Yep.
Yeah, big factor. Like I feel like that's sort of been my issue with Dyson overall, albeit had an awesome champs and all of that, but just not having like strength being a really big component to his game.
Clay Hall has lined up for a behind. Damn it. Sorry. Continue.
Yeah, that would have been a nice goal.
That would have been nice.
Yeah, but not having not necessarily being the most technical player either. So you're getting a stoppage player that's I feel is a little bit messy in there as well, and that's why I've made comparisons to someone like a James Warple.
Yep,
that type of player where they sort of there's not really an area of their game where they're truly dominant, other than they're sort of beating you up around the ball, which is probably, in my opinion, never been less important.
Agreed. I think you can make the case for where West Coast is right now. A player who can beat you up around the ball, but limited hurt factor would still be a nice addition to this developing team. Albeit, we don't want someone who's going to get torched the other way as well.
Right here, right now, you have the worst list.
Yes. Yeah. No argument there.
That doesn't mean that it's not malleable and it can you've got some pieces there, I reckon, but it is the worst.
Well, the beautiful thing about sport, and particularly our game, is that it's all just a moment in time. Like who has the worst list 2 years ago is completely irrelevant now. It was probably still West Coast, but you know what I mean. You're always in a position to improve and move up. It's simply just where you are in the cycle. In theory,
sure.
Some teams never really move up, but I prefer to think that we are not going to be that.